Have you noticed now anything and anyone, they call themselves Christians? You will have a gay parade.
That's right.
And over 85% of the homosexuals will say we're Christians. Ask yourself, viewers, why T.D. Jakes don't say nothing about homosexuality, same-sex marriages, men with men, women with women? Think. He asks Jakes a question. Can homosexuality, in fact, the interview is on YouTube, can homosexuality and the church coexist? Jakes didn't stutter. He said, why, certainly.
The relationship between Christianity and LGBTQ issues has been a long-standing and divisive topic within religious communities, particularly in the black church. At the heart of this debate lies the question, can homosexuality and the church coexist?
Then Jakes said, there's many ways, there's a whole lot of ways to get to God.
A question coming in from Black 185 in our digital community said, do you think, I'm assuming, LGBT community and the black church can coexist?
Absolutely.
Think! Why don't he say nothing?
Let me push that question, because that's sort of an obvious yes. Church ain't turning nobody away. How should the black church and LGBT community exist?
I think it's going to be diverse from church to church. Every church has a different opinion on the issue, and every gay person.
He's busy flapping his hands around.
And every gay person is different. And I think that to speak the church, the black church or white church or any kind of church you want to call it, are all the same is totally not true.
Why don't he say nothing? Either you are against it or you condone it.
And all gay people are not the same. The types of relationships that are afforded are based on the types of people in each individual case. Yeah. And LGBTs of types and sorts have to find a household of worship that reflects what your views are and what you believe like anybody else.
This question has sparked theological, social, and cultural discussions, with religious leaders offering varying perspectives on whether biblical teachings allow for LGBTQ acceptance within Christian congregations. One of the most notable conversations on this issue comes from a discussion involving Bishop T.D. Jakes is a globally recognized preacher and leader of the Potter's House Church in Dallas, Texas. In a widely circulated interview, Jakes suggested that the church and LGBTQ+ individuals could coexist, though he acknowledged that different churches have different views on the subject. He emphasized the importance of religious freedom, personal convictions, and the separation of church and state, arguing that individuals should find a church that aligns with their beliefs, rather than attempting to change existing religious doctrines.
Let's compare what Jake said to what Jesus said. Give chapter and verse again.
St. John chapter 14 and at verse 6.
John 14:26 said.
St. John 14 and verse 6.
All right, John 14 and verse 6. All right.
Jesus saith unto him.
Jesus says unto him.
I am the way.
No, I have many ways.
I am the way.
Spell way.
W-A-Y.
S.
W-A-Y.
Where's the S?
No S. W-A-Y.
There's one way to get to God. If you are against wrong, you'll speak out against the wrong.
And the church should have the right to have its own convictions and values. If you don't like those convictions and values, you totally disagree with it, don't try to change my house, move into your own and establish that sort of thing and find somebody who gets what you get about faith.
You's a liar!
And trust me, I've talked to enough LGBT, they are not all the same.
Oh, for sure. Any more than all Christians are the same.
No.
But how do we, first of all, has your thinking evolved on this?
Evolved and evolving.
You's a liar!
On the other hand, Pastor Gino Jennings, known for his fiery and uncompromising preaching style, has been one of the most vocal critics of Jake's stance. Jennings holds a strict fundamentalist view, arguing that homosexuality is outright condemned in the Bible, and that churches must take a clear stand against it. He rebukes pastors like Jakes for what he sees as a failure to uphold biblical truth and for allowing worldly influences to compromise the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Evolved and evolving.
Where were you and where are you?
I think that where I am is to better understand, the church bought into the myth that this was a Christian nation. And
You's a liar!
once you get past that, which a lot of people are going to criticize me because they're still going to think it's a Christian nation, which is a whole different show. But once you begin to understand that democracy and that a republic actually is designed to be an overarching system to protect our unique nuances, then we no longer look for public policy to reflect biblical ethics.
You's a liar!
If we can divide, or what you would call separation of church and state, then we can dwell together more effectively. Because atheists, agnostics, Jews, all types of people, Muslims pay into the government then cannot reflect one particular view over another just because we are the dominant group of religious people.
You's a liar!
This clash between Jakes and Jennings reflects the larger struggle within modern Christianity. Should churches evolve with social changes, or should they remain strictly bound to traditional interpretations of Scripture? This debate raises significant questions about the role of the church in addressing contemporary social issues, the nature of biblical interpretation, and the balance between religious conviction and inclusivity.
The country, because those numbers are changing every day. We need a neutralized government that protects our right to disagree with one another and agree with one another.
You's a liar!
Is there a way to approach Christian tradition, Christian scripture, in light of a new understanding of LGBT? For example, 18th century, there might have been a particular understanding of what slavery meant in relation to Paul, in relation to the New Testament, etc. That has shifted to the point that it is socially accepted that irrespective of what text says literally, we don't support slavery as a body, right? And even though it varies most churches don't support slavery. Might be a few out there that do. We don't get invited to those. But similarly, there's room for that same kind of shift.
I think that shift has to go on behind the closed doors of the church, because I think in the mainstream America, anybody who doesn't agree with you, we have a derogatory name to call you. And I think it oversimplifies the complexity of text. The fact that you have fidelity to the scriptures as you have been taught does not mean that you're necessarily homophobic or any other kind of phobia. But yet in mainstream America, anybody who doesn't line up with a particular worldview, we give them a name to ostracize them, much like we were given names to ostracize us. This name calling does not depict the struggle that many people have theologically. I think the argument has to be theological and not sociological.
To fully understand this issue, it is important to explore the theological arguments, cultural influences, and historical shifts that have shaped the Church's approach to LGBTQ topics. This discussion is not just about personal beliefs, but also about the broader implications for faith communities, public policy, and the future of religious doctrine in an ever-changing world. This topic centers on the debate within Christianity, particularly in the Black Church, about LGBTQ issues and whether homosexuality and the church can coexist.
The fact that the world has turned that way doesn't mean that the word has changed that way.
You's a liar!
The argument for clergy, fundamental clergy, has to be a theological argument. It cannot be a sociological one.
If I wasn't out of time, I would push you on this. And one day I'm going to bring you back just to talk about this, because I'm fascinated by your take on it. And I want to not just challenge you on it, I want to understand your thinking on this, because the thing I appreciate about you most is that you operate in good faith. You're honest, you're transparent, and about your struggle with these things, and about your convictions about
Well, it's a complex issue. It's a real complex issue, and it was in the Bible days. Sexuality versus spirituality. Paul spends a lot of time wrestling back and forth, trying to understand, should a woman wear her head covered? Should you cut your hair? I mean, they grappled back then, and we're grappling now, because we are humans, and we are flawed, and we're not God.
You's a liar!
The conversation you referenced involves Bishop T.D. Jakes discussing the complexities of this issue, and Pastor Gino Jennings responds critically. 1. The debate in Christianity over LGBTQ issues. Many churches are divided on LGBTQ+ inclusion. Some churches embrace LGBTQ members, while others firmly reject same-sex relationships as sinful. This divide is particularly contentious in the Black church, where traditional values often clash with contemporary social views. 2. T.D. Jake's stance. Jakes acknowledges that different churches have different views. He suggests that LGBTQ+ individuals should find churches that align with their beliefs. He argues for the separation of church and state, emphasizing that democracy should not enforce biblical ethics. He also compares this debate to past theological shifts, such as the church's changing stance on slavery. 3. Pastor Gino Jennings' criticism. Jennings strongly opposes Jake's perspective. He believes there is only one way to God, referencing John 14:6, where Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." He argues that if a church does not oppose homosexuality, it is condoning it. Jennings criticizes Jakes for being vague and not outright condemning homosexuality. 4. Key points of controversy. Does the Bible allow for different interpretations of sexuality? Some argue the Bible condemns homosexuality, e.g. Leviticus 18:22, Romans 1 verses 26 to 27, while others believe those passages were culturally specific and do not apply today. Should churches be inclusive of LGBTQ members? Jake suggests LGBTQ individuals should find welcoming churches, while Jennings insists the church must reject homosexuality outright. Should faith influence public policy? Jakes promotes a neutral government that respects diverse beliefs, whereas Jennings believes churches must take a clear stand. 5. Theological vs. Sociological debate. Jake suggests that theological struggles exist within Christianity, much like past debates on women's roles, dress codes, and slavery. Jennings believes there is no room for theological debate on homosexuality. It is simply against God's law. The debate over LGBTQ inclusion in the church is far from settled, and the conflicting perspectives of Bishop T.D. Jakes and Pastor Gino Jennings highlight the deep divisions within Christianity. At its core, this debate is about whether the church should evolve with societal changes or remain strictly bound to traditional biblical interpretations. Jakes represents a more nuanced and flexible approach, acknowledging that different churches hold different views and that religious freedom allows for diverse beliefs. His stance suggests that LGBTQ individuals should find a faith community that aligns with their values, rather than expecting uniformity in doctrine across all churches. Additionally, his advocacy for the separation of church and state reflects the broader argument that religious teachings should not dictate public policy. Jennings, on the other hand, takes a hardline, fundamentalist approach, arguing that Scripture is clear and unchanging on the issue of homosexuality. He sees any deviation from biblical teachings as a compromise of faith and a sign of the church conforming to worldly influences rather than standing firm in truth. His position echoes the concerns of many conservative Christians who fear that accommodating LGBTQ perspectives will erode the moral foundation of the church. This divide raises profound questions about the role of faith in a changing world. Should the church adapt to social progress as it has in the past, with issues like slavery and women's rights? Or is LGBTQ acceptance a step too far? Can a balance be struck between theological integrity and compassion? Or is this an all-or-nothing issue where compromise is impossible? Ultimately, the answer to these questions will shape the future of Christianity. Some churches will continue to embrace inclusivity, while others will stand firm on traditional interpretations. However, one thing is clear: this conversation is not going away. As society continues to shift, the church will have to grapple with these challenges, determining whether its role is to reflect the world around it or to remain steadfast in what it believes to be divine truth.